What's up? Welcome to another episode of Explain Yourself. My name is Joey Galvez, and I'm here with my pal Benjamin Morse. We have a couple of guests. Ben, we have Caleb Palmquist and Solis here to talk about their Kickstarters. But before we get into that stuff, Ben, how have you been, man? I wasn't here last week because of our connection. I'm
Mhm.
hopefully this is doing good because I'm running off of the free Wi-Fi of the new place. I might come in choppy, but dude, how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Been a busy week. Had Kevin Garcia on last week. It was really good. Got to talk about some cool Golden Age stuff. But yeah, same old, same old. I'm on the road this week, but able to get connected and be here to talk to Chris and Caleb.
Fantastic. So let's bring them and let's talk to Caleb. How's it going, man? You got a new one up. Let's talk to you. Give us your the quick log line, and then we'll say hi to Chris here for a second.
Yep, Dragon Grit is a fantasy western. It's a travelogue story about a, about a ex outlaw, and it takes place in a world where people ride dragons instead of horses.
When I saw this one, I was like, "Oh heck yeah, this is awesome!" Because and the way you explained it's like a Western but with dragons, like yeah, all day. All right. So Lise, how's it going, man?
Yeah,
Talk to us a little bit about Flag to Fly.
yeah, sweet. A Flag to Fly is a YA adventure. Kind of takes a little group around on starting a rebellion. Kind of analyzes leadership, tries to see what it takes, what it is that people avoid, all the kind of different steps, all the different ways it can be taken. Done by artist Lane Lloyd. It really kind of pops. Has a unique style. It's really great.
Fantastic,
Cool.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's great looking books this week. So awesome to see.
Very cool.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Let's go ahead, Ben. It's you. I'm gonna let you drive this one because I'm horrible right now, I guess.
So I'm going to share the page for Dragon Grit, and Caleb will kind of run through. You can give us a little bit more info about the book, and we'll ask you some questions.
Yeah. Okay.
There it is.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
means start, Caleb. Come on.
Yeah.
Go for
Don't
it.
be awkward.
Me never. Okay. Dragon Grit, like I said, is a fantasy western. And it's about a character named Vera, who's an ex-outlaw who's trying to make a living on the straight and narrow delivering packages out west. But as the railroads come in, her services are less and less required. She runs into a young man named Robin, who's sort of a city slicker, for lack of a better word. He inherits his father's estate, and he's trying to figure out what to do with it. And he's got this dragon that's been in their family for generations, who's dying, a mist dragon, and she keeps running away, and he doesn't understand why. Hires Vera to help him out, and she figures out that the dragon is trying to get back to her ancestral dragon graveyard, in much in the same way that elephants have elephant graveyards, and so they have to take the trek on foot across the wilderness to get the dragon back to her graveyard. And all the while they're being pursued by an old rival of Vera's and his dangerous gang of outlaws who all ride dragons.
Very cool.
Freaking
It's a
awesome.
really beautiful looking book, and it looks like you've really taken advantage, you and your artist, of course, of just the speed and all this, the excitement that you get out of just this concept. I mean, you don't everything's really fluid. You've got a lot of great, everything's very airy. It looks great. So it's an awesome take on the some of the old west iconography. But
Yeah,
it's really modern and fresh looking.
thank you. The artist's name is Kay Woolheiser. I worked with her last year on a book called The Knight and the Lion, which was an Arthurian fantasy about a knight and a lion. And she did such a great job that I wanted to work with her again. And she really liked the concept, and she's done a great job with it. So I'm super happy with it. And she's in it for the long haul. We've got 10 issues of this series planned.
Wow.
So yeah, and we also have a variant cover by David Hahn, Carl Kiesel, and Ryan Cody. If you're big on Kickstarter, if you do a lot of Kickstarter backing, you might recognize them from Impossible Jones or if you're a longtime comics reader of Marvel comics, you might recognize Carl from some of his work on.
From everything in the 80s.
Yes, that's right. He wrote and drew a Captain America strip for quite a while, and so he was. I asked him to do this cover. He was super gracious, super nice guy, and yeah, the cover I think turned out really great. So
Yeah, it looks great. I've dealt with him a little bit too. He's a really great guy. And actually, he inked my favorite all-time comic book, which is that World's Finest miniseries from, I think, 93 that Steve Rudin drew and Dave Gibbons wrote. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
It's funny. I always feel like when I talk about Carl, I feel like I'm name dropping, but like we decided to do this cover when I had dinner at his house, which is wild because when I was there at his
dinner at his house.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
It's name dropping a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Here's the thing. Here's the wild thing. I go over there. He starts asking me for advice. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I mean, come on. You're the Caleb Palmquist.
Yeah. When you meet Carl, it's like he's just like a really nice, down to earth dude who's like, who is, I mean, he's like such a joy to hang out with, and he does such great work. So it was really awesome to get him to do that. And then of course I can't not mention the letterer, who we're going to talk about again later, I think, because that's Dave Lentz.
We have no idea who that is.
That's my letterer.
Yes, that's right.
He's also my letterer for my life. He letters my life. Like he has lettered the heart of my. I love that guy. Just saying.
If you were to just throw a dart at Kickstarter, like the odds are high that Dave lettered something.
Yeah.
But I'm Dave and I made a deal, a blood pact some years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, and now he does all my books. So and he does really great work too. So yeah, that's this is the first issue. It's something I'm super excited about, and I co-wrote. Oh, this is very important. I should say I co-wrote this with my wife. And and this is the first time that we're collaborating. She's a novelist. She's a very talented novelist. Her name is Lorelei Jonason. And she loves fantasy.
Stop name dropping, dude.
Yeah. She loves fantasy, especially dragons, and I love westerns. And so we decided to kind of combine those things. And it's been super fun. So
cool.
I'm not sure if you guys have any other questions or things you want to know. Okay.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're a big Western fan. I am too. Are there any like Western comics, especially, or even just Western movies or TV shows that you really were looking at when you were developing this, or things you wanted to try to bring into the visuals or story points or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I think that probably in terms of like the story itself, the biggest influences are things like obviously True Grit. I mean, based on the name, I probably could have figured that one out. And then also 310 to Yuma.
Okay, yeah.
I'm actually a big fan of both versions of 310 to Yuma. But I know that the remake was like maybe a little bit panned, but anyway, yeah, I would say in terms of story, I mean, my favorite Western movie is Tombstone, of course. I love Tombstone, but in fact, one of the characters that you'll meet right at the end of this first issue his name is Jack, and he's the leader of the outlaw gang. And in many ways, he's just Johnny Ringo, but he rides a dragon.
That's good.
Yeah. And then, I don't know that I've read as many Western comics as maybe I should have, like Western themed comics. But I'm, not against it either. I grew up reading like Louis L'Amour novels. So every time I went to my grandma's house, she had like she was like very proud. She had 2 collections, Agatha Christie novels and Louis L'Amour novels. Those were like her 2 things. And she had like every book by those authors in paperback. And so I read a lot of detective books and a lot of Western books growing up. And so that was definitely a big influence on me.
Nice. I was going to ask you about this cover that David and Carl did for you. This is really different than most of the work I've seen at least David do a lot of. And really brings in a lot of Mobius. I would almost compare it to.
Yes, he definitely told me that he was going for that Mobius vibe when he did it, and I was like, yeah, man, if you're feeling that, go for it. Because I mean, my thing was like, I hired these guys, and they were like, you know, do you have anything specific that you want? And I was like, here are the characters, and like, I kind of want you guys to do what you want to do. Yeah, I don't know. I think he did. I agree. It's a little different than a lot of the stuff that he's done, but I think it turned out very cool.
No, I love it. I think it's really awesome that they were kind of really looking at your book and like, what's kind of a different way of looking at this, or kind of brought their own viewpoint artistically to your story here, which I think really works. I mean, like I'm a huge Mobius fan, so I've got a bunch of Blueberry books back at home. The Western series he did when he was younger, and obviously I think it's probably one of the best looking Western comics ever done. And I think obviously when you got these big desert landscapes and things like that, especially when you have some magical creatures, it's hard not to think of that stuff. So it was cool to see that this cover just kind of takes it in that direction and sells what's cool about that world.
Yeah, totally.
So you kind of give us a breakdown on what the kind of inception of the story is, what the conflict is, but you said you're going to go for, was it 10 or 12 issues?
10 issues, which I recognize is very ambitious. We had originally envisioned this as a novel. Like I said, my wife is a novelist. And then we had some concept art done, and then we just really decided we wanted to see it as a full visual experience and that it would really work as a comic book. And I'm a huge fan of decompressed storytelling, and that's how I write. And I just couldn't envision the story that we had imagined happening in 5 issues. And we did have a plan for if it wasn't, you always have an exit plan when you do things like this, where you're like, how can I wrap it up in a way that still feels satisfying without doing like the big epic that I planned or whatever. And but this has been my most successful launch on this profile that I've ever done in terms of backer count. I had my best day one ever, and I've continued to stay above like on each day, like more backers than I've had on that day on any previous campaign. And so I feel very confident that we'll make it to 10 issues.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, I hope you will. This is a great looking book. And actually, I was going to say, in regards to what you're saying about your launch and how well this is done, I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter about people talking about they market things and all that stuff. And a lot of people have said in different ways what they think is really working well on Kickstarter now is having strong interior pages. And I think certainly the success you're having right now would back that up. I mean, these are beautiful looking interiors, and I think that is true given that so many campaigns have like a cool cover image, a cool couple of covers or some variants, and the interior art is sometimes really lacking in all regards, or sometimes it's like, well, it's good inking, but the coloring's a little weak, and this is just strong artwork by any standards. So I think that really is starting to make me think, I think the interior is what really makes or breaks these campaigns in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's been happening in the last few years is that the bar is being raised on comic book Kickstarter. And I think we're seeing really an echo of what happened with board game Kickstarters, because if you look back 5-10 years ago, we started to see this like huge leap in quality on that kind of stuff. And now we're really seeing that on Kickstarter. I mean, the bar is really high now. and people are really looking for high quality comics.
Yeah.
And also, just as a consumer, I want the interiors to be good because I want the experience to be good. That's for me, that's what I'm backing a comic for. You know, and so cool covers are great, and I always do variant covers and stuff, but I'm you know, I want the interiors to be good. So
Yeah.
I really struck gold with Kay. She's been doing a really phenomenal job.
And talking about marketing, right? Because we're marketing guys, right? So we're looking at this stuff, and I want to get into this a little bit later here in the second half of the show, but because I'm seeing a handful of things that you're doing here that is playing to the market, and that is also, following these trends and pricing these things at strategic price points where I see why you have that continued peak, right? So let's get into Flag to Fly, because we're getting into the weeds there with the marketing talk. And that's what the second half of the show's about. But so let's talk a little bit about Flag to Fly. We'll open up that one, talked about one, and then we're gonna get into some really good talk about some marketing and price points and all that really fun stuff, because that's one of those big huge things that helps these Kickstarters get get these amazing first day launches and things like that, right? So it's the way you market them, is the way you pre-campaign, and I know that Caleb really has a strong pre-campaign and even some things during the campaign as well. So I really want to pick your brains about some of that stuff. But let's go ahead and get into this one. Chris, talk to us a little bit about this again.
Sweet. Yeah, totally independent. My Kickstarter, Flag to Fly, is kind of grows up with the audience. We started off, this is our second issue that we're trying to fund now. So it's a little trickier, a little bit more fun. But we have the story that kind of grows up with the audience as we go. So the first one, we have a link there to Global Comics a little bit farther down. That'll get you read it for free, the complete first issue, with our artist, Lane Lloyd, doing our nice main covers. Interior art, does really amazing character work, just does great stuff. The more I listen to you guys talk about it, it's a perfect example of what if you guys didn't, was I missing? You guys talking about Caleb's things. Sweet. I do have a lot of examples for the covers that we set up, the variant covers. But since this is kind of a pre-game to launching this time, where my first issue was completely made, the second one I need the funding to actually give to Lane to make these pages. We just set it up so the first one's completely free, and you can dive into that, get to know the characters, get to know all the way that the land shaped, the way that we're setting up these stories, and through that you get really awesome to look at leadership. We kind of try to lean into that. Really, my inspiration for it came while I was watching Game of Thrones, and I wondered what would it be like to be a children's story first, because just to push that boundary, but more about why Robb Stark was a good leader, just because he was somebody's son. Didn't sit with me well all the way up until he got killed. It just didn't seem like it was that big a loss. He was the king of the North for the namesake, and I get that's kind of nobility. That's what it was. That's what we live with all the time. Of somebody's juniors come up, and we just gonna believe him because he's somebody's son. The Kennedys right now are a big example of just how far we can shift from who was the leader to begin with and how far their children will stray. But we kind of look at that in this little island, and we kind of go back into a little Britain kind of setting, a little Westeros kind of feel, but it's a small island encampment that this king has gone on a warpath pretty much abroad, and now coming back to rule over his people. He's feeling itchy. He's going a little crazy, and he's turning on his people, and he's trying to eye them as being more soldier-like, and he wants that. So one of his knight commanders sees that and doesn't like it, just decides that this is going to destroy the people as they are. We got to figure out how to stop them. So they set out to start a rebellion, and they don't believe that they are leadership material. Bach on the main cover there just doesn't believe that anybody will really follow them, even though they are a knight commander in the army. And it's just this kind of, we all kind of do that, where we don't believe we're capable of pulling these people together and all these things. And we go through this adventure. We see them grow and what their kind of issues are with leadership, what kind of trying to teach the young Leon how to kind of restrain himself from wanting to be a leader is a big thing. And it goes through a lot of just these the tropes of a hero story of, you know, you have the chosen one that was supposed to lead us all to glory, but now it's his son and he's not really great. So do we still follow him? Do we kind of go along with that? We have wizards. We have really fun adventure kind of going all the way through. It's planned to be a 6-part miniseries. Nice, fast-paced little run through, but it's really great. So the second one dives into the grand market and just kind of their first step in trying to recruit people, seeing what happens. Right here, you can see the variant cover by Kara Husett, which is awesome. It introduces our newest character, the Merchant, who sits on a pile of gold with his bowl of rice, kind of leading you in. But we're not really sure if he's a good friend or not yet. So that's a good thing to see and unravel that little mystery as we go. Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Cool. Yeah, love the art here too. And this is really, I've seen a lot of Kara's work. This is one of the strongest pieces.
It's amazing work. Yeah,
really nice stuff.
Character design, like that kind of inspires me a lot. So seeing Lane's character work, as you can see, it's so different. But Kara does like amazing character work with just her interpretations of DC characters, Marvel characters, and her whole brand of different superheroes. And I love that. I love seeing that. So I tried to get her more work, and this cover blew me away. I was really happy to get that.
Yeah, no, it's a great cover. Where's this? Oh, here's the Global Comics link. Okay, I want to throw that in the chat.
The whole picture is the link too. So if you're on the Kickstarter, you can just click on that. But yep.
All right. Cool. So if anyone wants to go check out issue 1, that is obviously the place to start. Yeah, really cool stuff. I mean, I like Game of Thrones was kind of the way you described looking at this is almost. I know he sat down with Lord of the Rings and said like, the end of it is Aragorn ruled a long time and he was a great king, and he thought, well, like, how's that going to really play out? There's it's not going to be that black and white. And so he kind of, that was his idea for Game of Thrones, was to kind of really tarnish everybody and show how it's going to be.
Tolkien was actually another big inspiration for this, just in the fact that like he did The Hobbit first. It's kind of my first introduction into comics. I did Scott Snyder's anthologies for his classes, the Tales from the Cloakroom. I have 2 stories in the volume 1 and volume 2 of those, but then I went to do my own, and it's these, and I really decided like I want to shoot kind of for kids but over their head, so I figured Sword in the Stone with a little tilt towards Game of Thrones.
Well, that's what you want when you're a kid anyway. You want something that's like probably 4 or 5 years older than you really should be getting. It's not going to talk down to you, but it's going to want you to raise yourself up. But not like super NS. No. Like that, okay. None of that stuff. It is YA in the real strictest sense. But we just have fun with it. A lot of jokes, a lot of good things for all ages, really. Like I have a Sanford and Son joke worked in the first one that if anybody spots it, reach out to Twitter, let me know. I love it. I love you find it. It's weird. There's so many references I make now that I'm getting a little older that I'll say to people, and they're just like from the 80s or something like that. Make a joke about MacGyver, and people are like, "What's that about?" I don't get it. Somehow Sanford and Son has just never left the zeitgeist. Everybody gets it. Nobody's confused. They know all the catchphrases. It just never. That song just draws us in every time.
Hilarious. All right, I think it's time to let's go ahead and take a small break, and let's go ahead, and after we take this break, we're gonna jump into talking a little bit about marketing and price points and what you guys do differently, and how you guys are kind of seeing Kickstarter these days, working with your guys' different projects. So let's go ahead and move on to that quick break.
Click that mouse and warp into All Ages of Geek's website, your ultimate portal to everything geek culture. Here you'll find articles that speak your language, from the latest anime buzz to the coolest tech trends. Our mission, to celebrate geekdom in all its glory. Whether you're a gamer, a comic enthusiast, a 90s kid, or an anime aficionado, we've got something for you. Dive deep into them with All Ages of Geek.
All right, thank you guys for checking that out. If you guys are checking out some really cool stuff, head on over to allagesofgeek.com. Those are fun, some really fun partners of ours, and they are doing some really cool stuff, amazing things, especially if you guys are leaning towards the kind of what do they call them? What you got? They call them weebs, right? Is that what that is? The people who love anime kind of stuff. So if you're leaning towards that kind of stuff, definitely check them out because they do a really great thing. It's a sister duo who owns this company, and they do some amazing things. They are also going to be having an article in Archetypes, which is our campaign that is live right now, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But if you guys want to check that one out and see what they're talking about, they're going to be talking a little bit about some TTRPG character designs and stuff, and a little bit about how they kind of went about some research with some of their stuff that they're doing. And then if you guys want to check that out, go ahead on over to allagesofgeek.com and see what they're doing over there. All right, so let's talk a little bit about marketing. Caleb, I wanted to go to you really quick and see some of this stuff. You said that this is one of your best campaigns yet, and I wanted to know what do you feel that you're doing differently than the prior campaigns, and what makes this one as successful as you've seen it?
That's a good question. I think that first of all, it's a fresh new idea. People always get excited about new things, I think, or at least they don't always, but they can certainly. And I think that just like Unicorn Vampire Hunter was, this is like a real like mashup of ideas that really get people excited. And like you said, the art is phenomenal. I mean, Kay's work is really great. When we launched The Knight and the Lion last year, it was pretty successful, and I think a lot of that had to do with the art, quality of the art, and also I'm taking all the lessons that I've learned from 20 plus campaigns and applying them to this launch and trying to do the best I can. I mean, I think I've learned a lot, and yeah, I mean,
I feel like every campaign, you could do 20 plus campaigns. We've been involved with like almost 30 as well ourselves, and between the two of us, probably even more than that. But like, I feel like every single campaign is completely different, and there's always that one thing that you try to replicate or you try to go back and do again, and it doesn't quite work. Do you find like there's anything like that you kind of try to go back and do or replicate, or maybe like have a new twist on it so that you can try to make it happen again?
I mean, I always want the magic to be there every time, right? I will say though, sometimes it's like, sometimes you can have something like, I think the universe, this is going to sound really like woo woo, but I think the universe can read your intentions.
I believe it. No, I totally believe it.
And when I have launched stuff where I thought I'm going to cash in again, I'm going to capture that same thing to get that money again. Then it doesn't always do as well. I mean, for example, okay, so Unicorn Vampire Hunter was like my first big hit, and like that was just something I cared deeply about. I didn't come up with that story because I thought that it was like a surefire moneymaker. Like that was just a story that like truly appealed to me. It turned out to be something that really appealed to people. But then I was like, okay, what do people like about this? How can I cash in on that? And I made Vampire Detective in Space. Now I believe in that story, and I think that I made good on it, but it did about half as well as Unicorn Vampire Hunter did. And I think that part of that is that like there's some clear like, oh, this vampire book did well, I'll just do another vampire book and people will like that. And I think that Dragon Grid is kind of proof of like, if I go back to basics and say, what story inspires me, what do I think is really cool, what would I want to read, then that's really going to hit. And I think that I mean, it's not as simple as like believe in yourself and dreams will come true, but it's like
I get what you're saying. You're right, because what you did here was right. You took it back to what in essence, like what was the makeup of Unicorn Vampire Hunter, right? You did this unique thing. You did unicorns, you vampires, right? And now you've got this Western with dragons, right? So it's kind of in the same kind of vein of like the way you're executing it, but it's not another unicorn vampire hunter book, right? Or something in that realm, like you said, two vampire books back to back. People are just like going to know me as the vampire guy, right? He's going to do one in hell next, right? What is he going to do, right? Like unicorn vampires in space or something, or whatever. We don't want to know that but what you're doing is you're creating something, and you're capturing what that was, and that lightning in a bottle that unicorn vampire hunter was. And I do think you're right. That's kind of what you're doing here, right? And what I see here is I see a great cover, right? You know exactly what you're getting. You have great choice of font here for the logo, right? The whole logo.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that. It's a great looking
brand
logo.
of the whole thing, right? So it all comes together there, right? The optics, the branding, the way you're putting the colors that are on this cover, because now it puts you in this kind of this. I feel like it's in a dusty western town now, right? So you see all these different things, and it gives you it brings this whole different setting into yourselves, right? So now it's exactly what you did with that fantasy world of Unicorn Vampire Hunter, right? You brought everybody into that world without even knowing them. That's what you're doing. So I feel like that's kind of what we're doing. Maybe I'm a little out there with that, but along with all that, right? That's just the aesthetics of it, right? Now you got these price points. Obviously, doing this for quite some time, you know a little bit about what people like, where they want it, how much they're actually wanting to pay for a digital, right? Because we've seen all those polls that people have taken. They're like, I don't want to pay that much for a digital, or I don't want to pay this for shipping. And right, we've all been part of those things. Like, so now we've kind of taken those things into effect and said, and put these things. So how do you go about these things each time that you're doing a Kickstarter, that you come up with these kinds of these price points, man?
Yeah, I can walk you through it. I've been all over the place in terms of pricing. Alan says I should change my name to Slayla. Okay. Thanks, Alan.
Alan Dunford in house. Alan just finished up his latest Kickstarter for Horse in Hell #2. So that check you guys, if you guys missed that one, I'm sure you're gonna be able to have another chance. And if you don't, you're gonna have a chance to check out something that they do in Archetypes. But I don't want to steal your time, Caleb, like I just did. But
if you're asking about pricing, I've been all over the place. I will say that I hate to sound like some kind of like a corporate drone or whatever, but there's like sort of market forces here, right? It's like how much are people willing to pay, and what's the value, and how do I make sure that I'm pricing my stuff high enough that I am able to continue making comics and continue spending time doing this, but not so high that I'm pricing people out. And I will say, I was asked about this earlier today.
And there's also another one that you have to look at too. You have to also look outside of yourself and say, okay, I know what I feel like this everybody should pay, right? But what if I'm looking at it, is it really worth it? Just by looking at it, are they really going to pay that?
And I mean, the answer turns out to be yes, that they will pay that. And so one thing that I've been starting to do is that I'm offering like a regular edition, and then I'm offering some really premium editions. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I think, well, first of all, I want to reward people who are supporting me early on. I want people to feel like they're getting something unique and something limited when they're backing the campaign that they couldn't get later on. The story will always be available, obviously, and eventually it will be collected in a trade and all these things. But these, like my collector's editions, are foil stamped and they're limited. They have numbering on them, and my variant covers now, this is something I'm trying out, and I think it's a good idea, is that my variant covers are only in that collector edition format, because I'll tell you one thing, I have always had good luck selling variant covers, but selling back issue variant covers, I have no luck with at all. Like I'll sell even on very popular series, I'll sell a few copies of old variant covers, but people aren't really interested in them, even though they buy them in droves for the current issue. So basically what I've decided to start doing here, at least with this series, is the variant cover, the collector's cover, that's going to be available on the Kickstarter, and then on the backer kit it'll be available, and then I'll print to order. I'll print like a few more just in case of like production issues.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm going to print to order and send them out, and then it won't be available again.
And when you say foil stamped, that's the logo, and that's so it's going to be foil printed, spot foil printed right over that logo. Okay, love that. Okay.
Yep.
That's gonna look nice.
Yeah. I mean, I have here, I have my my Unicorn Vampire Hunter cover. That's this is the hardcover with that. I mean, that 2-color foil printing is like so nice.
It looks clean.
So and the Dragon Grit logo, we intentionally made it all one color so that I could do it in one color foil printing. But yeah. So and the other thing that I've thought about a lot is how can I offer like a complete bundle where I'm like, everyone gets everything that's on this campaign, but it like feels like it's at a reasonable price. And sometimes I go higher, sometimes I go lower. This one is pretty simple. We have one variant cover and then like a sticker and a print, and that's really it. But I
love that. I feel the same way. We kind of had it very limited on ours, and we only had 2 covers, right? And then we're offering standard covers, and then we're going to do a limited to 50. We're thinking about numbering them. We're not quite sure, but we're going to do an embossed title, kind of like what you're doing, but it's going to be foil printed title and embossed, and then the whole thing is going to be printed on foil with a really gorgeous looking varnish finish on it. So, and those are going to be very like same thing where those are going to be the only ones that we ever print. We're going to do the standard, but we'll never print those ones again after these 50. And obviously we're going to print a little bit more just in case, like you said, production issues and things of that nature. But I love that you offer things like that. Let's take a small shift and move over to Chris and talk about how you've kind of approached this. So this is one of your first Kickstarters that you've done, and I want to know how you kind of approach the the price points and the layouts and the way this page looks, because I was really impressed with the amount of actual artwork that was here to kind of separate the different sections of each page, each thing that when you scroll and look at the pages, which a lot of people really want to do sometimes, but we're just like, let's just slap a generic header up there real quick.
Definitely.
So tell us a little bit about how you kind of went into marketing this thing, and then the price points as well.
For sure. Really, I came for trying to support my other creators first and foremost. Like trying to get a page right from Lane was my first step, knowing what would be the basis of the whole project and how much I could break that down. And more it turned into just like what is kind of acceptable in the market. How much would I actually need to make to get that? How for my first Kickstarter, the variant covers was a huge draw. To have another artist sit down and draw something for the comic was huge, and their audience coming on was really big. So I definitely wanted to have that again. And knowing that like certain things just you want to see on the Kickstarter page. And when you're serious enough to really just do banners and things like we did in our first one, I got Rob Jones to do it, and I thought they were phenomenal. So I've just kind of been repurposing them, and we're going to keep busting them out, changing them up a little, just enough that we need for the next one. And more it's just kind of supporting artists that I find, more people that definitely fit the vibe, and support us in general, go out. We just kind of take them along. Pre-Pormont does a really good print in this for our little mini print package, which is just awesome to have everybody get a little Lane, Kara, and beautiful family portrait right there by Pre-Pormont. That kind of setting is like what I really try to push for in my Kickstarters, is highlighting the artists, knowing that like the character work and stuff is really something to highlight. Being YA, it's kind of hard to say like, let me talk to your kids, because that's kind of weird, but it's exactly that. Like I need to be able to have enough levity to know that it is a kid story. It is something that would be shared between the adults that I'm really pitching to and their children, but also knowing that it's got to be at least beautiful enough to catch somebody's attention and have somebody look at it. When breaking down the price points and everything for the higher tiers, I just figured what really me learning comic books is something that inspires my higher tiers. So like I have an editing tier and a script tier where you can buy the script forms of the first 2 comic books signed by me. We print it out, really nice bundled package, but you get pretty much everything that we offer, between the prints, the stickers, both variants signed by me. But then you get 2 scripts, both the first issue and this issue, bound, signed, really nice printed out script. And you can learn what scripting is. You can, like for me, Alan Moore's absolute, was it The Killing Joke? Batman's The Killing Joke has his whole script in the back. That was huge for Alan Moore, you know, long-winded Alan Moore. Even the later days of DC, he wrote it out really beautifully. And to read that and just be able to go back and forth the pages, like that's huge, inspiring. Of just, I want to write comics, I can see how it's done, and that aspect. Another step is having an editor. I love the idea of working as a collaborative space. Comics is huge in collaboration. You're talking to artists, for the most part, like there are the one-stop wonders, Frank Miller and the rest. But for most of us, we're talking to people. We're trying to get somebody else interested in our story enough to create something to help that story. And editors are really like, they're seen as a lot of the villains, a lot of stuff that got taken away because of editors. But really, and especially in the indie realm, like they're there to help you make it shine. They're there to help you connect to audiences and see stuff that's not your point of view. Yeah. And so we offer the ability that if you're thinking about making a comic book, we can set you up with 2 sessions from our editor, Aubrey Lynn Jepson, who is also part of the Tales of Cloakroom Volume 1. She was an editor on that and has taken Shelley Bond's class. Shelley Bond, the Vertigo editor for Sandman and a whole bunch of other things. Amazing. That class.
And not only that, you guys, both Caleb and Chris have they have a wonderful letterer who also doubles as an editor too, because he catches some of those things that a lot of people don't really catch, right? And then he's like, "Well, this works here. We need to have."
A lot of my jokes, actually, Dave, were punched up beautifully by him. Like there's one, if you read the first issue, there's a bunch of stabs that happen, and he counts them off in the background and just what looks like blood lettering. Just stab 1, stab 2, stab 3 with a vengeance, and that made me laugh so hard. But it wasn't in my script at all, and he added that.
Yeah, he does that all the time. Caleb, have you come across anything that the good old Dave Lance has done anything like that in your show?
He does edits and he doesn't tell me about it, and he waits to see it. Notice. And sometimes I notice and I hate it, and I say you're fired. And sometimes
he laughs at you, and he's like, "No, I'm not."
There's still a blood contract. You're coming back. Doesn't matter.
Sometimes he really improves it for sure. He'll add things or change things that are really good. And but I always say that, like, I make fun of him and say that I don't think he knows how to read, because he only reads my scripts as he's lettering them. And so I'm like, he doesn't know how to read. He just knows how to copy and paste. But obviously that's not true, because he makes these edits and he improves all of our comics, with his little additions.
No, we joke because Dave, he doesn't let up on us. We can't let up on him. So,
amen.
So, all right, let's kind of talk a little bit about what we are doing. We are actually, and then we'll talk a little bit about what Ben's coming to. I don't know if it's not out yet, right, Ben? I'm not.
No, I gotta fulfill August before I can start this next one out. But Archetypes, of course, is live right now.
we have Archetypes, which is our kind of tip of the hat to the old wizard magazines of old, right? We're gonna have some 3 brand new comics, the never before seen comics. We got one from our good friend Rafael Flores. He's got a book called Mother Wolf and Cubs. We have one from Benjamin Morris, who is our partner with Geek Collective. He's got one with Ace Falcon, and our good old friend Alan Dunford has a story that's going to be shown in this one called Beneath the Lighthouse. It's going to be his kind of A24 kind of style stuff. But this, what we're going to do with this is we have these 3 stories, right? But we're also going to be, and they're all 8-page stories. Some of them, 2 of them are previews, but they kind of have this. I love how like Alan and then even Ben kind of have their first few 8 pages is like almost like a contained story in itself, and then it continues on, and you so you can separate the 2. Love how when people do that, it's amazing. So that's what you guys are gonna get. You're not gonna feel like it just stops abruptly. It's gonna kind of have this contained story within itself, and you're gonna want to pick up these next stories when they come out. So we're also gonna have some articles. We're gonna have some interviews. We have some tips and tricks. We even have some tools that you guys are gonna be able to use in this, like some how to create a really gorgeous looking dynamic media kit where it's going to be super organized and numbered, and so that whoever on the other end is receiving it, it's going to come to them in a super organized way, so that when they look at it, they know exactly where to go first and second and third, and grab all the information that they need, so that they don't have to go anywhere else. So you guys are going to want to definitely grab that one. We have our friends over at the Geek Network who they interviewed David and Boer and about their Kanto series. We're going to hear about that. And then there's a handful of really cool stuff that we're going to be talking about. So you're definitely going to want to grab this this book. We have a really gorgeous Wizard magazine homage cover by the talented Mr. Benjamin Morris, my partner here. This is Ben. Please talk a little bit about what your inspiration was for this cover.
Well, when it comes to old Wizard magazine, there's only one inspiration, and that's Bart Sears. Those covers were, I mean, if you were my age or maybe plus or minus 5 years, that is like, you just see that artwork, especially that airbrushy style of coloring with a little bit of splatter, and it takes you right back. So obviously went through and kind of picked up as many design cues as I could from the layout of the covers, the type and all that stuff, but really did my best to kind of try and draw a little bit more like Bart Sears does, and certainly go in there and try and pick up some of the textures you get from those old airbrush covers, which at the time, computer coloring was just starting out. So if they ever wanted to kind of do a plus to the coloring, so you didn't just have the old dot pattern, you have very primitive computer colors. You'd have sometimes the watercolory stuff that you'd see in old Valiant comics, or you'd see this style of airbrushing that Ken Stacy kind of pioneered, which was like just really rendered, super hot highlights. It just really got in there, and it was unlike a lot of things you had seen before. So it was a real pleasure to go back and just try and emulate that. Obviously, not super successfully. I don't think I came as close as I wanted, but I could live with it, and it's just so much fun to just go back and revisit that era a little bit. It felt like being 11 or 12 again.
I freaking love this cover. This is one of the my favorite covers that you've done. Not because because it's done for us, but but like I'm like, I look at this and I can, all I think is like bubblegum, dude. I'm like, oh heck yeah, this is a freaking badass cover. But yeah, we have this one. We got this one. This is what the one that we're gonna do. So the logo up there, you guys see, it says Archetypes, and it's in the style of the old Wizard style magazine style, and we're gonna emboss that, and it's gonna be foil printed. We did these gorgeous gold kind of yellow colors, and with these pink pops, so it's gonna be really freaking cool. And so we have those available. And we really hope that you guys are going to grab this one, because we're close to $2,200. We unlock something at 25. We unlock a La Llorona trading card. And what's cool about this is because that's one of the main characters. That's the main character you see on the cover there. And so we keep unlocking some really cool stuff here. So we're definitely gonna want you guys to grab this one. We have unlocked tons of digital comics for everybody. There's gonna be some really cool stuff. So if we're at 25, we unlock the training card, and then if we get to 5,000, maybe we got about 10 days left. If we can open up some really cool stuff, I'll unlock some t-shirts and stuff like that. I'm actually wearing the t-shirt from our brand right now, that we created for this Kickstarter. It's one of my favorites. Like, we are all geeks, right? It says it's not hoarding if it's comics. So you guys are gonna want to grab some of these things that we have. I know you guys play around with a little bit of merchandise, though. How do you guys feel about merchandise? Caleb, let's go to you first, because I know you got some stuff. How do you feel about branding and merchandising your brands for your comics?
I only do things I can flat pack as a policy, and that's just because it's a huge pain in the butt, I think, to do other stuff. I'm set up. I mean, I'm also like a creature of habit, and I'm afraid of change. So, there's that. But
see, I like to do those things that are scary and that you're like, I don't want to pack that, man. So what I do is here's my trick that I do. I'm like, all right, if you guys I'm gonna price this thing at a maybe not a wild one, right? It's not outrageous, right? But I'm gonna call it a wild price point, because if anybody's willing to pay that wild price point, you're gonna pay for everything itself, grabbing that thing, right? So like our embossed covers, we're paying, that's $30. That's literally, you're going to be paying for everything right out there. Like, I'm going to give you every single thing that we're going to have. That's paying for all of the packaging, right? It's going to pay for the cover plus all of the stuff. So I kind of like to, if you're going to buy a t-shirt and I price it at like, $30-$40, then it's going to come to you in a freaking nice looking box, right? So I don't like, so that's kind of my idea. I don't know if you guys kind of, do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
I do pretty much, Caleb, keep it nice and tight where I'm able to set up at a nice convention or something. But yeah, it's a lot easier to have fly ready.
Right.
The biggest thing I did, I'm trying to see if I got one within arm's reach. I did some 3D figurines that fell apart and got broken, and it was a whole thing, and it was a disaster, and I had to refund everyone. That was a few years ago. But I do collector's boxes, which are, I don't know if I'll do them again. Well, I don't know if I'll do the same ones again. I did really fancy collector's boxes. Mike Teeners. Well, they did really well. They sold for like $90-$100 a piece. They're like matte printed. They're like, they got all the foiling and everything, and then they're magnetically sealing and all this other stuff. Yeah. And they were like really they were cool, but the problem is they ended up being kind of expensive to make unless you do them in massive bulk. So it was like, I sold them for like $90 a piece, I think, on the original Kickstarter, and I sold a bunch of them, but they ended up costing me $50 a piece to make. And so it's like they weren't that much harder to pack. I had to pack them in different boxes and use like some different packing. I couldn't do it in a Gemini, obviously.
You got to do like a box within a box within a box or something for those.
Yeah, and people really liked them, and I liked them, but I just think like if it's like a really premium product that I'm having to pay $50 to create, and then I'm only selling for $90, it's like, I start to wonder like if that's really worth it to do.
I think it's cool to kind of do those things every once in a while, right? When you're like, if you guys gonna pay $200 for this, then it'll be worth me going through the headache to do that, right? And I'm gonna throw some premium stuff in there to make it $200 worth, right? So and then doing that every once in a while, maybe not every single campaign, because I can understand fulfilling something like that all the time would just be a mess, right? Unless you have a production, line of friends and family. But it's like, man, how do you? But and that's the thing, right? We're all basically doing this with ourselves or our significant others, or helping us, our mother-in-laws or mothers, things of that nature, kind of helping us do these things. So we do have to kind of think of that way, we have
All
to
the
also
time.
think of the shipping process, right? Ben, what do you do when it comes to shipping?
I'm going to change it around. Generally what I've done up till now is print on demand through Kablam when I was doing it on my own, and that worked out pretty well. Obviously, I don't have a lot of control, but I'm also not filling up my room with books or an inventory, or of course making 20 trips to the post office and paying for shipping individually. And cost wise, that did actually work out not too bad. The price points on those were pretty good as of, I guess the last time I did that was about a year ago. Now I've been doing the last couple of campaigns with Zoop, and they've obviously handled that all themselves, use a fulfillment center. I think that really depends on how many units you're looking to ship. I think I was a little disappointed with how those campaigns went in terms of, I thought they'd do a little better than they did. I think if they had gone to what our projections were, it probably would have made a lot more sense to do the whole big print run, use a fulfillment center. I think it really just depends on, the scale of your campaign, how many backers you have, the size of your product, how many extras. There's probably a sweet spot. I would say I've seen people say about like 500 to 1,000 backers is where you might sort of benefit from, having a fulfillment center helping you out somewhere in that area. That's kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I've had campaigns that are like close to 600 backers, but then when you look at like how many physical backers, it ends up being like 300-ish, between 300 and 400. And it's like, I flirted with the idea of hiring a fulfillment center, but it's like ultimately if I do it myself, or even if I have a couple buddies come over and I pay them $20 an hour to help me pack orders, that's still way more efficient cost wise.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
I think it's just easier to go ahead.
Oh, just maybe kind of the introduction into this and starting my own. Like a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is to build my name and to do these things. So a lot of that has to be put into the aspect of like my printing. I do it through Comic Impressions. I do amazing work, and it's great to have like a really pristine first book. But in that, like I didn't go huge numbers over for things that I just wanted enough that I could take to conventions if I needed to, have a little back pocket to give out to people and all the rest of that. But mostly it was just trying to get those prices to where it scrape by just enough to make the next one. And pretty much all of that has now gone back into promotion and everything else that now I need to make the book.
Yeah, so I'm thinking probably in my next campaign, I'm going to try and do it myself and see how good or bad that goes. But speaking of which, go ahead.
Oh, I was to say, as you can see behind me, I have my it's very haphazardly organized. But if you could, and then if you look over here, over there, I've got like just books everywhere, and it's I have a system. I mean, I've done it so much that I know how to do it, and it takes a lot of time. But I put on a podcast, or I listen to Love on the Spectrum on my iPad or something, and just like do hours and hours of packing. And as much as it's, I don't know, it's kind of just part of the business, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing especially with me, I'm like, well, I can't draw, if I'm because I'm doing everything myself. It's at first I was like, I don't think I want to tackle fulfillment as well, but I'm getting to the point where, depending on where my backers end up, I think I'm gonna give it a shot and see how it goes. But speaking of which, before we go, if I can throw that up there, in a little bit of time, we're gonna start this campaign up. It's got some of the characters you just saw. Ace Falcon is going to be a part of this, but it's the sequel to We Are Scarlet Twilight. It's in pre-launch now. We'll hopefully be launching in late spring. It's kind of a throwback Golden Age comic, which is to say you've got a few different stories, some prose stuff in there, some cool retro ads, and it's a lead into Cobalt Crisis, which we're going to launch over at Zoop probably, which is basically Crisis on Infinite Earths if it had happened in the 1940s. So it's a really fun way if you're into superheroes, if you like those big crossover events. It's a new take on that I think is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love this Scarlet Twilight so much that I years back, I think it was what, almost 5 years now since the last time like when I interviewed you for the first time. It was quite a while back, man.
It was 2021.
Yeah, something like, so man, I remember grabbing this book, and I was like, holy crap, I really love this style, the art, man. And then so seeing that we have all kinds of really cool characters bringing in, very very excited. And I'm so excited that we're gonna be featuring Ace Falcon in archetypes, and you guys are definitely gonna want to grab that stuff. But before we do go, packaging, right? I want to talk about packaging. There's all kinds of, there's been so many nightmares, and I know you guys have had these nightmares, and people have had things ruined. So what we do is we partner with Gemini Mailer to give you guys 10% off each of your so if you go to GeminiMailingSupply.com and you guys are at checkout, we'll get you guys 10% off with the code Geek Collective 10, GEEK COLLECTIVE, the number 10, and you guys put that in at checkout. That gets you 10% off. We've had so many creators use that, and they've loved it, because it's gonna, if you're putting in big orders, right, it's gonna, I think Alan said that he saved a couple $100 one time with things. That's like $200. That's if you get a really good artist, right, that you can pay for another cover for the next issue of whatever you're gonna do for $200, right? Or that's a good amount of something for the next book. So you're saving now. You can put that towards the next project,
and
right?
also protecting your book, because these things
Protecting the
really
books.
are.
That's right.
But that's exactly
we have
why
to draw this stuff to ship it out and have it show up crumbled. Absolutely.
We're talking about shipping, right? So because we make these things gorgeous, we make these things with embossed titles, foil titles, right, with all these gorgeous hardcovers. We want to make sure that they get to the place that they belong, right, which is in the hands of the people who purchased them, with it, which is also on the shelves that people love. And we want to make sure that they get there in pristine condition, right? Because if you're like me, you have boxes full of comic books that you buy and you never read because you put them in the thing and you file them away. You want to make sure that you get them there to those people, especially if you got these gorgeous spot foils on these covers, man, that you want to get them there. And we partner with Gemini. There's also other ones, but we want to only talk about Gemini because they pay us. So make sure you guys are doing that. Use Geek Collective 10 at checkout. And also, if you guys do that, it does help Geek Collective, because it helps us to fund some of these things. It also helps us to get some materials for ourselves, because we do get discounts to purchase these things to also fulfill our campaigns as well. So make sure you guys are just helping us all out. You guys help yourselves out. We get 10% off. Before we go, Caleb, please drop your log line about the book, and then we'll go to Chris.
Yep. Dragon Grit is a fantasy Western comic. It takes place in a world where people ride dragons instead of horses, about an ex-outlaw taking on a dangerous quest across the wilderness while being pursued by an old rival.
And where can they get that?
On Kickstarter. Also, so if you search it on Kickstarter, Dragon Grit, you'll find it. Also, if you go to dragongrit.com, that'll take you right to the Kickstarter.
Fantastic.
And we've been throwing the links to these campaigns over in the comments if you're watching these on YouTube. So just click on those and it'll send you right over.
Flag to Fly,
Chris,
tell us.
Yeah.
By a comedy adventure. Oh, can you hear me?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you can. You were frozen.
By a comedy adventure that blends Sword in the Stone with Game of Thrones.
Fantastic. Where can they find it?
You can find that on Kickstarter and on Global Comics.
Fantastic. And Ben, please tell us about Scarlet Twilight, Scarlet Twilight. I always get that.
It can get complicated. So Countdown to Cobalt Crisis is is kind of the lead in to the next big book. You can find that on Kickstarter. It's in pre-launch now, and we're going to launch in the spring. Just got most of that done, so we're just waiting some other things to be able to launch. And then after that, the big story is going to be over on Zoop. It's called Cobalt Crisis. Like I said, it's if Crisis on Infinite Earths or Secret Wars had happened in the Golden Age. So you're going to get all those epic, earth-shattering, continuity messing with type of things, but in that old kind of more simplistic style. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
and they can find that on Zoop. Where?
Zoop.gg.
All right. And then you guys can find archetypes just by doing a quick search for archetypes on Kickstarter, or go to geekcollective.net/archetypes, and you guys will find our fun little geek culture magazine there. It's under tabletop games, so don't be afraid. It is there for a reason, because we are part of Kickstarter's open call for Zine Quest. So we are definitely doing some really cool fun stuff there. We also, and I don't know if we want to announce it yet, we're probably going to announce it once the campaign ends, but we have chosen our three next comic books for issue 2 of Archetypes. And I will say this, Archetypes 2 will possibly be in the spooky season. And there is possibly some talk about doing a Fangoria magazine homage cover. So we'll see how that works out, guys. And we'll see what's going on. We got some fun stuff in store for you guys. So definitely going to want to follow us, follow Ben and all the fun people that we have here. Caleb and Chris, thank you guys for checking us out. Ben, please see us at the show.